All that time you spend painting up your personal miniature, all the backstory and details and time you spend with this, it really means a lot to a lot of people. And when you're done with your campaign or your game session, it goes into a little box and you kind of set it aside. That belongs on a nice little display stand, and that's what I'm going to show you how to make this week on Tabletop Witchcraft. Hey there, and welcome back to Tabletop Witchcraft. I have got hundreds of miniatures. Some of them are even painted, and I bet a lot of you are in the same boat. But there's those certain few that really mean a lot to you. Like me, I've got them on my studio shelf, and they tend to get pushed around a little bit. That's where this week's video comes into play. I want to build a cool little diorama. It's a 5x5 that uses a lot of different techniques. And it's a great beginner project, so even though some things might seem a little advanced, they're in small increments, so it doesn't get that overwhelming when you work on the project. I've got a lot of really cool special effects that I'm going to show here. One that is going to be shown in an upcoming video, so make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on the full effect of this little diorama. Now, in the past, I've done little giveaways. I'm going to continue to do that. I've got a set of plans in this video, and I'm going to give them away to one viewer. Just leave a comment down below what your favorite little detail was in this diorama, and like the video. And you're going to need an Instagram account because that's where I'm going to announce the winner next Friday, and I will announce them in my story on Instagram. So if you see a name there, just send me a private message, and I'll email you your set of plans. All right, if you're ready, let's go grab some supplies, and let's get crafting. Okay, so this video will have a set of plans, as you can see here, that you can pick up if you'd like to. There'll be a link in the description below, and it will help support the channel. But if you don't want to pick them up, not a big deal. You can follow along and still get a really awesome little diorama just kind of by following the step-by-step process. Now this green foam is Stair. It's really hard to get. Actually, you really can't even get it in the United States. This was given to me by Gerard Boom over at Shifting Lands. If you can't get this, not a big deal. Just use some XPS foam, and you'll have to spend just a little bit more time adding your definition and detail into the foam. Now, using the plan, we can kind of come up with the overall shape of the diorama. It's going to be a 2-level piece. And you can see how having a prox on for this build really is nice, but you can also do this with an alpha knife, just taking your time. Alright, so we're marking out a little section on the left side of the diorama for the stairs. Now this is a cool little trick. Turn off your prox on at any part where you're going to make a 90-degree or any other angle turn. You can then make the adjustment on the wire and then turn the prox on back on and continue your cut, and you get some really cool angles. Alright, now this little piece, I'm just going to make use of this piece of Stair and cut out this arched section for a little balcony that we're going to make. Now, regular 1/2-inch XPS foam is a little over 1/2 inch in thickness, so each step here is about half of that. So I'm trying to get 2 steps per, I guess, 1/2-inch piece of what would have been 1/2-inch XPS foam if you're going to use 1/2-inch and stack it, if that makes sense. Alright, now we're going to spiral these stairs a little bit, and following the plan, you can easily see you can get the kind of elevation of each step as well as the shape. And to do all these cuts, we're just going to use an X-Acto knife and an alpha. Just remember when you're doing these cuts also that every step you go down, essentially you're taking that, 1/4 inch roughly off of each section. That'll help you visualize each cut as you're making it. And be real careful if you're going to cut like that. I know I should be cutting away from myself, but I was moving really slow. I know it's not really a good excuse for cutting towards my finger, but I I did it. So let's keep moving on. And you think I learned my lesson, man. I got a cut on one of my videos back in the very beginning on the channel that I saved for a blooper reel. So maybe someday you guys you'll see that. All right, now we're on to some pink XPS foam. I want to mix it up and show both types of foam in this video. This is going to be the back wall, and we want to take that little sliver off because we're going to add an archway to the alchemy shop. Now when you make any freehand cuts like this on the Proxxon, I like to keep the heat really low. I'll use a sample piece of XPS foam and I will push it up against the wire until it just starts to cut through, and that's the temperature that I run with. You get a nice accurate cut that way. So once we get the arch cut out, we're basically going to just glue it back to the wall. And here I'm using a few pins, and I wanted to use tacky glue here, not hot glue, because I really wanted to get the alignment right, and hot glue would have set a little too fast for me. Alright, so this diorama is going to be full of all kinds of cool little details. One secret little detail that you probably won't find out in this video. We'll leave it at that. So we're going to work on one of those right now. Using the Proxxon, I'm going to cut this half circle out of the whole piece. It's going to be like a little sewer dungeon area underneath the alchemy shop. And these marks are just to help us line up our grid work, or our line work actually, for all of the lumber for the flooring. And I'm purposely trying not to go exactly straight with these. It makes the floorboards look a little bit better. Now I like to use a sharp pencil when I'm putting in my exaggerated wood grain, and I like to do a lot of knots. I think it adds a lot of character and detail to any floorboards or any woodwork that you're going to do. And you're going to see just how nice this Stair holds its shape. Look at that. When you pull back on the wood, it adds a really cool, really aged look to each piece of timber. And you can see how it's very easily holding its shape, something that would be a little bit harder to do with XPS foam. Now we're going to cut out a little trapdoor in the floor. And again, a good example of how easy it is to kind of maintain a shape after you've carved it out with the Stair, just using a pencil. It almost looks really cool just leaving it like this with the shading from the pencil there. It looks like a 3D piece of art. Okay, so for the entrance to the sewer, you know, you could leave this piece in that I'm cutting out, but again, everything working in layers and dimensions adds a lot of character to your crafts and builds. So whenever you can kind of, you know, add that depth to a build, I always like to try and do that. Something as simple as pulling off this little layer is going to make these stones stand out quite a bit from the rest of the foundation. Now using this texture roller, I like to texture each stone individually. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it does a lot better end result, because if you just roll this whole thing with some aluminum foil, it's really going to flatten the whole piece out. Okay, so I'm trying to do a lot of different stonework in this video so you can see a few different techniques. You know, we've got sort of the cobblestone look around the foundation. You saw some brickwork just a second ago for these stairs. Now I'm doing kind of like a flagstone for the top of the stairs. And the cool thing with this is there really is no wrong way of doing it, so just have a lot of fun when you're working with this. And again, a good example of texturing each stone and not rolling the whole thing. I'll put a link up above to my foam roller video where you can see me talk about making that little texture tool. Alright, on to the second level. Same idea as before with all of the line work for the wood grain. And you can see, trying to save a little bit of time where I can, no point in texturing where the stairs are going to go. And it might not seem like a lot of work right there, but it really does add up over time. And be careful when you're pressing these into place that you don't press too hard, because just the pressure from your hands alone will, mess with the texture of your finished piece. And another really cool example of the difference between texturing XPS foam and the Styroder. You can see how this it rips and tears just a little bit. It actually looks really cool still, so I don't mind doing it like that. But it doesn't hold the shape quite as well. Okay, now we're going to add a railing or a banister around the top of the alchemy shop. And these were from miniaturecrush.com. You've seen these already in my cemetery gate video, so we're just making use of the bottom half of them now in this video. And as long as you kind of finesse this a little bit, you can still wrap and bend the banister or the railing gently. I did crack one little piece, but you really couldn't even notice it once the build was done. So just take your time, and if you got like a little acrylic roller like this, it's used for rolling out clay. You can use that. Anything you find that's sturdy enough that you can wrap the banister around would work, obviously. And then I just hot glue that right into place. Alright, now to glue the back wall into the floor. I wanted to sturdy this up a little bit, but I actually screwed up. So these were great. I still recommend putting these pieces of wood in there to secure it, but I went up a little too far. Only go up about, I'd say, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch up into the pink XPS foam. You'll see why in just a minute how that would get in the way. I actually had to cut a section of this out from inside the foam. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt. Before we get to that, we're going to get to some Hearst Arts molds. I did a video, I'll put a link up above to that video. Tons and tons of awesome little trinkets and decorations that you could add to all your crafts. I had so much fun digging through my box of casts that I made and just kept adding. I actually had to stop myself at one point. That might look a little familiar. That was in the previous video on my Hearst Arts. If you want to see how I made that, obviously watch that video as well. Now we go to the awesome box of Citadel skulls. All kinds of stuff in here to choose from. I wanted to do a little wall decoration, and I figured I wanted something that looked a little bit natural, not like a demon, something that could have actually been a roaming animal in this world, and I think this is probably the closest piece that I could find in the pack. If you want to pick up any of these items, you can find my Amazon affiliate links in the description below. Alright, I'll put a link up above to this video right here for the LED torches to see how to make that. And right there was where I ran into trouble with that wooden rod. I hit that when I melted through with the foam. And obviously you want to make sure you wear really good protection, wear a mask when you're working with that. And make sure to stay tuned until the end of the video to see what's so special about that torch, something that you haven't seen before here yet on the channel. Alright, using just a little bit of green stuff. I actually ended up moving that one hinge. I don't know what I was thinking, leaving it right there. I just totally didn't look right at all. So after this had cured, I looked at it, I was so, it was bothering me so much. I ended up pulling that right one off and repositioning it maybe 1/8 of an inch more to the right, and it looked way better. That would have bothered me forever if I left it in this mini diorama. Okay, now we want this little piece here for the bottom. You'll see why in just a minute. And all I'm doing is adding a little grate or gate across the front of this. Now, once we get that done, we're finally onto the Mod Podge portion of this project. It's a little black paint, Mod Podge, a little bit of water so it thins it down and you don't miss out on all that detail. Then to paint it, you can see the paint colors in the background on the papers here. They're all from, I believe they're all from Apple Barrel. We got pewter gray, black, burnt umber. Then on the railing, I'm doing the territorial beige. I did a fence video that you can find on the channel that shows how to really age that well. That came out really nice. And then we're going back to the pewter gray for all the cobblestone around the base. And I actually go and add a lot of different variations. So example for the bottom right, that pewter gray, I'll add a little bit of brown to that, and it'll allow me to vary a few of the stones, and it looks really cool. As you can see right there. You know, and then I'll do some light, I'll do a few with some darker brown, and just keep changing it up until you're satisfied with it. After you wash it and do some highlights, it looks really, really nice. Now I know that looks really light for woodwork, but trust me, it comes out to be a really nice aged look when we're done. I just do a little dry brush over the entire thing. I use that country gray for the whole project, for the dry brush. Now we're going to do the black wash on most of the stone, and obviously the wood is going to get the brown wash. Now I like to have a contrast at certain angles or certain points. You can see here, I'm really focusing on the edge of that where you can see the shadow in the background is dark. We got the contrast of a light, nice white edge there. It looks really cool. Alright, now you know I love pigments. I think they are an excellent crafting material to have. This is just a mixture of black and burnt umber. And I'm mixing this and putting it into the deepest parts of the stairs, where, you know, dirt and grime would build up. Once we're satisfied, to lock it in place, just use another paintbrush and just dab a little bit of that onto the pigment, and it'll lock it right into place. And I actually used pigments along the blackish brick color on the walls in the back as well. And I used a little there. Anywhere where like dust would build up, you'd want to use some of this pigment. Now here's my selection of Hearst Arts casts that I'm going to use. And here they are all painted up. I didn't want to show all the paint job because this video would have been probably twice as long. But just have fun painting them up in any color scheme you want. And all you need is a little bit of Eileen's tacky glue to hold these right in place. And don't worry if you have a little bit sticking out right there. You can see a little bit of glue. It's all going to dry clear, and you're not going to see it when you're done. And if you get a little extra of that tacky glue sticking out, you know, you can always dry it or, you know, mop it up a little bit with a Q-tip. All right, now I thought the sewer grate needed a little bit more attention, a little bit of color. It really helped with the overall final look of this piece. And I just sprinkled on some fine turf from Woodland Scenics right on here. A few different colors, again, just to vary it up in color and layer them as well. Okay, so now we just place that cardboard underneath, and I'm marking out where I want to place my little sewer monster that we're going to have sticking out. We got some tentacles that we're going to make coming out of the trapdoor and out of the grate as well. I'll put a link up above to my cave scatter terrain where I've made some tentacles in that video, and you can follow that for a little bit more in-depth tutorial on how to do these. But basically, you're just wrapping some green stuff around some copper wire. And you can see how much I love this texture tool that I made. It comes in handy for so many different applications. Alright, so our little sewer monster is going to be just some aluminum foil, again with some green stuff pushed over top, pressed onto this cardboard or this cardstock, and we can sculpt it right in place. Alright, so as you might have seen in one of my previous videos, that's all my leftover green stuff. I guess I need to get a little bit better at estimating how much I need when I'm crafting. Fun fact, I knocked that entire thing on the floor right after I was done with this clip, so that was awesome. And we're just using some clay sculpting tools to kind of add some bags under his eyes and just make him look kind of creepy. And you want to make sure to keep your clay sculpting tools damp when you're working with them so that it doesn't stick to the green stuff. And, you know, kind of be sure when you place another piece of green stuff on another one, it's kind of where you want it, because once it touches the other piece, it's kind of stuck. So just kind of take your time with that. Alright, we got a bunch of different paint there to paint this guy up. You know, just have fun with it. Do whatever you want with the eyes. And then we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo thick mud to add a mucky, nasty bottom to this sewer floor. And to hold them in place, we're going to whip out the gel super glue by Gorilla, and we'll just place that right on the floor into some of that thick mud. It'll hide where those points are touching. A little bit of super glue right there to hold the door in place. And this is just a little bit of UV resin. I think I just did about, 2 drops right there. Hit that up with a UV light, and you're good to go. Nice little cool effect. It takes maybe 90 seconds for that to cure. And then finally, I'm using some typhus corrosion and a little Ryza rust on these bars to add some rust effect. And it's all set for your mini. Alright, now it's time for the giveaway. Make sure to leave a comment down below what your favorite detail was in this little display, and like the video. And while you're down there, it won't hurt to hit that subscribe button as well. Now, for those of you that have stayed till the end of the video, I've got some very special news for you, something I've tried to keep a secret for quite a while. I've been working on my next epic build, and it's coming out in just a couple of weeks. And it's going to be based on this book from D&D, the new Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. I'm super excited. It's a collaboration between me and 3 other people that have helped contribute to this build. I want to thank all of them now, and I will again in the future because, man, this is going to be such an awesome build. All right, pick up some merchandise, help out the channel, grab the plans as well. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you around.